Hawaiians always have been as emotional as other people, okay? But in the traditional case, for most of the people, always individual exceptions. Exceptionally good ones, exceptionally bad ones. Individuals in any society. But as a whole, they gave a very high value, a very high, what we might call a cultural value, to that spirit of aloha, to that ability to harmonize. Harmony was extremely important because on it depended the survival of the community. So they developed a system called pono as one example. That when anger flared up, here was a way, a means of conflict resolution. And it was designed to provide the least opportunity possible for direct confrontation. So if we would all be having a ho'oponopono here, we'd be more of a circle, but then each one of you would get to, and if I were the haku, that means the leader, if each one of you, I would get an opportunity to speak about the problem, but you would only speak to me, never to each other. That would not be allowed. Then my role would be to listen and listen and listen and give suggestions and finally help to produce a resolution. Often including forgiveness, sometimes including restitution, but it was a kind of a thing that people would get together because they wanted the harmony. They wanted a way of getting out of that anger state and that separation. So this kind of thing, in a lot of various forms, was developed because they put such a high value on the harmony. Now, one of the most important words in Hawaiian language besides aloha is pono. You may hear Hawaiians using that a lot, whether something is pono or not, meaning whether it's good, right, proper. Okay? And there were connotations of harmony in that word as well. And so these were the strong values. Some of the other values you hear talked about when Hawaiians even today are talking lahui, which means the togetherness of a group. Alulike, which is working together as one. The kinds of sports they engage in are the most favored sports. Of course, they do the typical American football, basketball, and all that baseball kind of things today. But the traditional Hawaiian sports, in which there can be competition, but it's not competition head-to-head. Surfing is one example. Outrigger canoe racing. These are competitions of skill. There were, in the old days, some confrontive type of things like boxing, okay? But the great majority of things was simply a competition of skill, not head-to-head, but side-by-side. So this whole society had this general orientation, this underlying, if you might, foundation of giving such a high value to it. In a society where you don't give such a high value to a clear definition of love, well, then there's so much confusion and people are trying to get medicine for road rage rather than for trying to resolve the situation and bring it to a more harmonious conclusion. It's a whole different mindset in modern times in a culture that emphasizes a more of a fundamental warrior attitude about things. So instead of healing cancer, we have a war against it. Okay? And all that, we find that in so many ways throughout the current society. So getting rid of anger is a lot more difficult because being angry is given a high value. When you're sick, a very high value is fighting the illness. Well, nothing. You can't really fight an illness. Bam, bam, bam. You know, you can't fight an illness, but that's the value. So in that kind of all the things that go along with fighting and anger and resistance and all that kind of stuff are given a very high value. In Hawaii, it was the opposite. Did they have wars? Yes. Did they have angers? Right. Did they have terrible things that would happen between people sometimes? Sure, they were human beings. But they had this cultural foundation that gave them a lot more ways back to harmony.